Hey there, and welcome to Epic Mind Studio. My name is Vadim Chiline, and I'm creative director and photographer here. Now, in today's blog, I'm going to cover diffraction and how it affects your photography. In the first part, I'll be covering the physics, followed by real-world examples using a Canon 5D Mark III. In a subsequent video, I'll show you how I counteract diffraction using focus stacking. So stay tuned. Let's go take a walk together along a nice beach in the Caribbean, and let's talk some physics. Light travels in the air as waves, much like ocean waves really. Now, let's think of the shoreline as your camera's image sensor. Okay, so far so good. We've got waves, we've got a shoreline. We've got light, we've got your camera's image sensor. So what happens when you put a lens in this scenario? It's basically you're putting an obstacle with an adjustable hole in this ocean and shoreline situation. Now, since I can't control the ocean and I can't put a real barrier, and I'm in Canada, I had to find a different solution to show you guys how this actually works. So I found this cool little virtual applet. I think it's called Virtual Wave Tank, created by Paul Falstad, who's I think a physicist at university I found. I'll post a link later on in the video. So let's take a look in the virtual tank of what's actually going on. Okay, now that I have the applet loaded, here's the setup to show our ocean and shoreline analogy. Let me just start the waves. All right, so the light waves come and hit our imaging sensor like from the top. So you got on the top here, the waves, our imaging sensor at the bottom. Nothing out of the ordinary is happening. Now, let's see what happens if I add a barrier to this. All right, so I just loaded up a barrier. You can see in red over here on the top. It's a wall. The waves will be coming from the top and going towards your imaging sensor at the bottom there. So let's start the animation. So right now we can see what's happening. We're getting some of the waves hit, and as the pattern goes, you can see a lot of little wavelets forming on the sides here, which basically is waves that just kind of they cancel each other out. They're causing interference with each other. In layman terms, I guess I can call it. So what happens if we start taking a slit and make it a little bit smaller? It'd be equivalent to when you're stopping down your lens. So you bring down, say, from f11 to, say, f16. So I'm going to try to simulate this in the little applet. So let's take a look at what's going on. All right, so I just loaded up the smaller aperture size, or the smaller gap in our barrier. So let's see the type of pattern. Pay attention to the actual patterns that you're going to be getting spreading out. This can be quite important with what's going on with diffraction. So I'm going to start the animation right now. Here we go, starting. So as you see the waves funnel through that little gap, look at the side patterns that are being created here. These weird looking, there's this big funnel in the middle, and there's smaller funnels being scattered on each side. Now that's going to be quite important. So let me try showing you now one more animation that shows you at f32, or at the maximum aperture, or smallest aperture you would put on your camera, and you'll see what the pattern does then. And then I'm going to go into explaining what's with these funnels I've been talking about. With the smaller aperture that I've just added over here, as you can see in the little ripple applet, now take a look at what's going to happen this time once I start the animation. What you start seeing is additional divergent waves that each travel different distances from each other. These waves begin to interfere with each other, some adding up together, some canceling each other out. This is creating a diffraction pattern. Now, if we could take a photo of these funnels I've been talking about, like if they're hitting up that sensor, if you take a picture of it in a physics lab and you take a look at what's going on, it's going to create what's called an airy disk. Now, an airy disk, let's take a look at what it actually looks like if you take this picture. So I loaded up in Internet or Safari over here. Right over here are these concentric circles that are happening. So every aperture value will give a different pattern. And this central diameter, the central circle, is primordial in what is happening with diffraction. Now, let me explain this to you. Talking about that central circle in of your airy disk, what's critical to understand is that on each imaging sensor of each camera, be it a 5D, a Nikon D800, a 6D, etc., there are pixels that make up the sensor, and each one has a different size depending on the technology, be it full frame, be it 50 megapixel, be it 30 megapixel, be it a 12 megapixel camera. They all have different pixel sizes. Now, this relates directly with this disk. The physics states that if the central disk's size, diameter, approaches 2 to 3 times the size of that pixel width of your sensor, you will witness diffraction, meaning all these other ripples are creating interference with canceling out data and adding data. It adds a bit of a blur and lacks contrast versus when you have an image that is not stop down, say at f8, which is typically the ideal aperture you want to shoot at for ultimate critical focus. This disk would be a little speck, meaning it's a fraction of the pixel width. So I found this nifty little website that can show you the effects of diffraction on various sensors on different cameras, and we'll jump into it right now and take a look at what does what on different cameras. Going on the website cambridgeandcolor.com, they have this nifty little drop-down box or application that you can actually change the lens aperture and the camera body to just get an idea of what's going on with this central disk. So let's just try playing around with, let's put a Canon 5D Mark III. All right, so it's got a pixel diameter of 6.3, I think, microns. I'm not too sure. It's been maybe 12, 13 years I've left university, so I should maybe know this. But anyways, let's assume it's microns, units. Now, at f16, the airy diameter of that disk is 21.3 microns. Therefore, you will start seeing diffraction at this resolution. We're going to show this in the next section where I go live with a 5D Mark III. If we change this to say let's put it f2.8. Look at the size of that little disk. It is minuscule, it's tiny. It's 3.7 microns, so half the size of the actual pixel size. If we go to f32, we get 42.6 microns versus a pixel diameter of 6.3. This will be completely a blurry mess. Now, you got to realize that diffraction is real, but within a certain degree, you can still use an image that has some signs of diffraction. Now, f16 I shoot regularly at, yet I just showed you that it's going to show some diffraction in this theoretical model. You can use it. You can even shoot at f20. It depends what your ultimate usage will be in the end. If you're planning to print big posters, then I wouldn't shoot at f20, f32. You're going to get some mushy looking images with lack of contrast, lack of sharpness. But at f16, it's good enough for many uses. And if you shoot at f8, it's even better, but you're going to get a really shallow depth of field. So let's jump in behind a camera and see real-world examples with the 5D Mark III. All right, now that I'm downstairs behind the 5D Mark III, I'm going to show you some quick examples ranging from f8 to all the way to f32 and show you what's happening with diffraction in real-life situations. I set up a simple little sterling silver cubic zirconia ring, nothing fancy, a simple 2-light setup, 2 soft boxes, mirror, paper card, or whatever you want to call it. So let's start right away. Let's make this short, and you'll see right away in Capture 1 what's happening. So I'll take my first shot at f8. All right, so f8, I got my first photo. Now, if we go into Capture 1 and just look at the image, The depth of field is extremely shallow, as you can tell. It's basically the size of this little row of diamonds here, and really, really go shallow. Now, let me take another one at, I don't know, maybe what should I do? Let's see, f14. Let's take it down to that. So f14, let's move that up. f14. Now, I'm using the Cyber Commander of the policy buff lights using Einstein's. It's really nifty to have the Cyber Commander because you can actually just remotely control all these lights without having to go on each one. So let me just move this up. I'm going to go to f14 actually. Yeah, f14, I think it's going to be a good setting. Let's move this up. One light done. Now let's move the other one. All right, so let's take a little shot. Now let's go take a look again at the picture. So now we got our new image here. If I select both of them, let me just adjust so they're perfectly in the same spot. Now you can see already that the image on the left, which is the one shot at f8, is extremely sharp. Look at the prong, look at the first little diamonds here, are the cubic zirconias. Look at the second image at f14. It's not as sharp, but you start getting a little bit more depth of field. You see on this next row of diamonds, you're starting to get some stuff. So still very usable, still very nice. Already some diffraction showing up. Now, if you remember from the other video I showed you from Cambridge in Color, the website, you can test each sensor and at what aperture you start seeing diffraction. Now, don't remember on the top of my head what the 5D Mark III is, but I'm pretty sure at f14 you should be already seeing signs of diffraction. So now let's take another one at probably f16, f18. Let's see, I'm going to try shooting it at f16. And which is just one little stop more. Change the light up, increase it a little bit. All right. All right, lights are adjusted. Take a quick snapshot. All right, so if we compare now the f16 to the last one, f14, let me just adjust these two and just go through them. You can see that the sharpness already at f18 is, f16 is already quite low. Look at the difference. We're getting still yet more depth of field, and if we compare the latest one, the f18 to the f8, let me adjust diffraction is already pretty much there, doing its effects. The image is more mushy. It's not a bad image. It's still useful. We're looking at 100% magnification. This is crazy. I mean, if I go back to full frame, if I go here and go to full frame size, this is quite a big image. It's a pretty big print size. It's still useful. Is it ideal? No, but you can still use it easily. Now, if you start going down further down the f-stop range, or you shut down your lens a little bit more, let's see what happens again. All right, so we're going to go to f18. Let's go there, f18, and increase our light. All right, all done, f18. Let's shoot. All right, let's go take a look back. Okay, so just for giggles, let's already start comparing to our original f8 image. And let's click in here and see what's going on. Now, I don't think any of you have trouble just seeing what's the difference between a very sharp image and what's already looking to be a blurry image. Now, we're getting a lot more detail in the depth of field. We're getting a lot more, but we're sacrificing the actual foreground diamonds where they're turning into mush. F18, personally for me, I think is the maximum aperture I'd use in any of our photos. Anything more than that, as you'll see in the next few shots, for me, I would deem unusable. it starts becoming too much of a loss of detail, too much loss of sharpness and contrast. So let's carry on. Let's move onwards. All right, let's go to f22. So f22. Okay, you shoot. Let's take a look. All right, so if we compare again with the f8, I mean, quite seriously, that's mush. I don't even know what's in focus, what's out of focus with this. If you look at the image, I mean, obviously the exposure is a little bit off. There's a smidgen if you look at the actual histogram between the two images, but beyond that, the actual resolution is gone. Diffraction is already in full effect. So now, as a last little example, let's go to f32, the maximum my little El Cheapo 100 millimeter macro from Canon can do. And let's see what diffraction can do in its worst state. All right, let's go to f32. And let's increase the power of these little light bulbs quite a bit more. All right. Okie doke. It's going to blast my eyes. All right, done. Okay, so already I can tell just by looking at the screen that the image is already a blurry mess. Really, you look at the far end of the piece of jewelry, it looks like there's a halo thing going on. The light rays are basically just being scattered everywhere, like I said in the physics part of the course. Some waves are canceling each other out, some are adding to each other, so you're not getting a concentrated beam of perfect image, I would say, is the easiest way to describe it. So let's look again up close. So if I'm moving through the image, I'm not even sure what I was focusing at. I mean, I feel like I need some LASIK surgery for my eyes or glasses. I don't know. Everything's blurry. So let's compare it to the f8. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why in your right mind would you shoot at f32? Lord only knows, I don't know. So if we go to our f14 shot, I don't know, even let's go to our f16. Let's take a look at f16, which I find is still quite usable, and compare it to f32. I mean, quite a difference. Yeah, if I zoom out a little bit, all right. I mean, it's still quite usable on the one on the left, the one on the right, f32. It isn't. So that's really what it is. I mean, there's nothing better than you guys go out and try it out for yourselves, discover where your camera is diffraction limited, and see what your tolerances are, your clients' tolerances. Like, for example, clients that tend to pay more money, I'm willing to perhaps, well, you'll see in the next part when I talk about focus stacking, and the number of shots you need to actually do to get a successfully sharp focus from head to tail. You cut corners for budget reasons. So if, for example, if you're going to focus stack for a client that wants to pay you next to nothing, well, you try to cut the corners and you might go to f16, f18, and use less shots. The overall image might not be as nice, but you get what you pay for. A higher end client, I'm willing to take more photos per shot at a smaller or larger aperture value and actually, make a better image in the end. So that's part of the game, how it goes. So I guess that about concludes the whole thing about diffraction and what it really does in real life. In the second part of the video, I'll show you Helicon Focus and how I use that software to do all the focus stacking. I'm going to try to cover some of the basic settings, what they do, and why all of you should be using that in your videos. So until next time, have a good one.